No, I'd been to a Euros, hadn't been to the World Cup yet. I was only 18.
So you'd won the quadruple before you turned 18?
Yeah, I was 18, yeah.
That is mental.
Yeah.
Because I think from about, and I've told this to you, Claire, I think from 5k in of the 21.6k or whatever it is, I was done.
Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Stronger Than You Think. We are at the spectacular Stadium of Light today in Sunderland, which in exactly a year's time will host its very first rugby match. England's Red Roses will run out onto this immaculate pitch right behind us as they open their World Cup campaign, and we absolutely cannot wait. The vibe in here, it's fair to say, is a kind of cross between Kids on Christmas Eve meets en route to Taylor Swift. Now, big occasions require big names, and chortling to my right, we have exactly two of those. We've got international accolades in spades and about 260 test match caps by my maths in Katy Daley-McLean, World Cup winning Red Rose captain, and in 144-time lioness,
Wowzers.
Carney, good afternoon.
And a Swiftie.
And a Swiftie.
You said Taylor Swift.
Are you?
Yeah.
Everyone's a Swiftie.
Just thought I'd throw that in
I
there.
just not would have guessed that from you.
Yep, love the concert.
Oh, there we
Anyway, I
go.
totally ruined the whole of the start of the podcast, but thanks for having me.
Absolutely not. Fellow Taylor Swiftie.
Kind of. I feel I'm just too old.
Nonsense.
Okay, I'm a Swiftie.
There we go, a trio of Swifties, and appropriately, we were just discussing how we've got the length and breadth of the country covered. We are going to talk about the geographical distribution of the 2025 World Cup today. So we've got the South, the North, and the Midlands' finest. You might have noticed that our regular Stronger Than You Think hosts, Ashley and Jodie, aren't here today, and I am as gutted as anyone. I love those two, but they will be back. Do not worry, and we will do everything we can, girls, to hold down the fort in your absence. Now, from those starting out on Couch to 5k through to those winning Olympic golds and all the way back again, women have been pulling up trees in the sporting arena all around the globe. But we've got to start with these two, because as I said, they have achieved so much. So how is this for an opening bat? I would like you to each pick your single career highlight. Katie, we'll come to you first.
Oh, wow. I mean...
That's an easy one.
It is an easy one, isn't it? I was going to try and make it tough. Obviously 2014... winning the World Cup, lifting the trophy as captain in France. Obviously, we've just had 10-year reunion last week, so that for me would be a pretty decent highlight.
Saw all your socials on that, the 10-year. That was good. And you just made me feel so rubbish now.
Oh, don't say that.
It's amazing what you did. Fly off as well. Controller, dictator.
All right, show off. Dictator?
Like, in terms of, like, you dictate
Benign
the play.
Oh, okay, fine.
You dictate the play and
Thank you.
orchestrate everything. Yeah, impressive. No, it's amazing. Mine isn't as anywhere near as good as that because you're an absolute legend. But I think just actually, I was thinking about it. My proudest moment is actually getting that first England cap. You know, that kind of, it's a bit like relief that you've kind of represented your country and you've been there and to get the jersey and to run out. I think that for me is, I've done some cool things, but I think in my heart that's one that really sits.
What year did you get it? Your first cap?
Was it 2005?
Claire wasn't born then.
Oh, wow.
That is nonsense. I was at primary school though, just to make you.
Oh, wow.
You are very rarely wrong, Karen, but I am going to pull you up on something you just said. We've got two legends in the studio today, 100%. And what you picked there as your favourite moment brings us on nicely to something else I wanted to ask you, because you always hear athletes post-retirement say that they didn't stop and smell the roses. They didn't enjoy the journey because they were so fixated on the destination. But did you have a moment where you thought, oh, I've actually made it?
Do you want to go?
I think I was really fortunate because I had a choice in my retirement. So it was my decision and I went on my terms. And I think as an athlete, like Karen says, one of the biggest moments of relief I think sometimes in your career is that first cap that you finally got it and you've got off the ground. And I think it was nobody else's choice, it was mine. I think that approach when it started to cross my mind, when I'd started to think about it, that back end of my career, I had a lot more moments where I just stopped and kind of was like, this could be the last time. I was very fortunate to be able to enjoy captaining the team at Twickenham, playing out in France, things that I knew I wouldn't get the opportunity to do again. So yeah, I think I probably didn't do enough of it, and you're right, because you're so focused on what comes next and what do I need to do to get there. But those bits were pretty special.
Yeah, I don't think I had that mindset of ever really making it. I think you just don't ever think that. No, I've never really thought that. I think obviously a big achievement looking back was probably winning the quadruple with Arsenal.
It's pretty decent, isn't it?
But I think like then you're thinking, okay, domestically I've won everything. You know, I'd already been playing for England, been to World Cups and Euros, and I think I'd been to a Euros, hadn't been to the World Cup yet. I was only 18, so I'd achieved a lot quite young, but
So you'd won the quadruple before you turned 18?
Yeah, I was 18, yeah.
That is mental.
Yeah, because I joined Arsenal, and then we Arsenal were already an amazing team, but that season then we went and won the quadruple. Yeah, I think I was 18. Yeah, 18 or 19. I was young.
So now can you step back and appreciate how incredible
Well,
that is?
that is a huge regret, and I know a lot of the players think that as well. Is that we didn't really like Arsenal, or the athlete mindset is you think you'll do it again, and you should do it again, and you have to do it again, and you keep going and you keep going, and you're on this kind of wheel that you just keep thinking that it's going to happen, and it doesn't. And I think the thing I've thought about once I've retired is actually bringing it all together, like 2014 probably for you. It's actually really difficult to bring it all together at one time and get it and get it. So it's incredible, I'm sure, when you have that moment. The Lionesses had it in 2022 as well. But I think for me at the time, I didn't realise when I was at Arsenal for that quadruple team that was it, that we meshed it together, and I thought it would continue. And it didn't, so that is a regret. I didn't celebrate it enough.
I think that's really interesting though, because I was much older in my career when I was having those. So I was 31, 32 when I was thinking about it. So I can't imagine having the capability at 18 to be able to be like, oh, I need to really enjoy this moment, because who knows what comes next, to have such success at such a young age.
Yeah, and like I said, I think the young age, I think you're right, as you get older, and you mentioned it, and I certainly did towards it, you think, oh, it might not happen again, and you do try and savour those moments a little bit more. But like I said, it's so hard to bring it all together. You know, it's not like individual sports it's so difficult, they have the challenges in its own self, but when you're trying to bring in 15, 11, or the bigger squads as a whole to make it happen, it's actually really tricky and quite rare at times.
Yeah.
And those achievements played a huge part in driving on women's sport as a whole, because your careers both sat at very interesting junctures within rugby and football, increased professionalisation, increased coverage and exposure. Now, upon retirement, do you step back and sometimes think, that was a real sea change moment and I might have played a little part in that?
I think we definitely inherited the stuff that the footballers were doing prior to 2014.
Oh, yeah.
And I think on that, the stuff that happened in London in 2012 was really the first time that female athletes were spoken about. Then these guys were spoken about around football and sports teams. And I think building into 2014, I think we were like this is our turn. Like, we're watching these great individuals, these great teams. Like, we want to be part of that journey. And I think now in hindsight, you look at all the tremendous options of women's sport that play out. I definitely don't think we had that in the early days. It was you're a runner or an athlete like Jess Ennis at the time, or Lionesses, and that was pretty much it. Then kind of cricket and hockey were all coming on at the same time. It was very traditional sports.
That's so interesting.
As you don't like now, you've got Sky Brown skateboarding to bronze, and you've got free climbers, and you've got like all of those things. If you're a young kid, you can aspire to be anything. I definitely was like, it's pretty limited. It's going to be a very core sport.
And then what you went on to do in 2014, we can definitely thank you for the fact that we're sat here at this incredible stadium. It's a 50,000 seater, and we'll come on to talk about it in a little bit, but it would have been unthinkable at the time that a World Cup would have opened in England's backyard in a ground of this size. So, Katie, thank you. 2025 World Cup, 365 days away. The 10th edition of the tournament, 16 teams for the first time. And that is huge. The fact that 4 other nations get a crack at the big time. It also looks to be the most competitive yet. When I reel those sorts of things off, Katie, how do you feel?
I've got goosebumps. Like, watching the hype video that went out today, you will testify, like, women's sport is not used to this, and football are on a massive journey on this. Actually, it's becoming the norm. But I think in 2010 we played at a university stadium in the group games. 2014 we played it at Francis Sports Centre, so again, just like lots of fields. Ireland we played at a university centre, and New Zealand was very similar. So just think that we've grown in 10 years since 2014, but 15 years that we're going to be selling out stadiums, and that is the norm. It is awesome for our sport, and it just shows the rapid rise in the interest in the game.
Because this place is gorgeous, but it's not the only amazing ground we've got. We've got Ashton Gate, we're going to be heading to Franklin's Gardens, the Allianz Stadium, otherwise known as Twickenham, will be going down to Brighton. Karen, how did it feel as your career progressed and the game moved on, running out at these more imposing grounds? Because it's not just the amazing facilities, but it's the fact that you know that on any given day you could break an attendance record and the eyes of the world are on you, and you're running out onto turf that traditionally only men occupied. How much did that mean?
That meant a lot. I think that the last one that you hit me with, I remember at 2012 when we went out, first time we played at England as part of the Great Britain team, and we were in the lineup, and there was 80,000 for that game, and I turned to Kelly Smith, who was like my idol growing up, and I said to her, this is what dreams are made of. And I remember that, like, growing up, you would have had this, like, it was every boy's dream to play at a stadium like Wembley, and that day I was able to fill a dream that I never thought I'd be able to fill, and now it's a regular reoccurrence that our women's teams, of it being cup finals or internationals, get to play there. But going back to your point in terms of playing at main stadiums, I think a really, really key facet is it's more accessible for everyone up and down the country that will be able to see these amazing female athletes. And I think that's really important because it is still all women's sports are still growing, and they're growing at a rapid rate. I mean, the last two Lioness games here, I think the first one was 9,000, and then in 2023 went up to 43,000. So in 2 years, there's been a massive jump in that. So by hosting the Women's World Cup finals here up and down the country, you're going to be able to see, everyone's going to be able to see various teams, individuals, players, and it gives people the opportunity in different regions to be able to go and watch the games. So for me, that's really, really key. So it's, yes, you all want to play in main stadiums that have better facilities, better infrastructure for people to get there and for players to be part of. But for me, it's the accessibility that you will be able to, up and down the country, go and see amazing female athletes, female rugby players, go out and do their thing and just crush it. I think that's the biggest thing for me.
I think you touched on it, the word opportunity. We're now giving women the opportunity to play in these stadiums where they can break records. Because we've known the trend has always been that if we put it out there, people want to come. But have we done it on such a grand scale? And I think for me, that is one of the best things about this World Cup. Like Karen said, it's a geographical spread. So you're not just going, oh, well, you can only see them if you come up to Sunderland for 45 or you go to Ashton Gate or Twickenham. You've basically got everything between York, Brighton. So regardless of where you are,
Exeter.
you can Exeter. I think it's the sun,
Yeah, Sandy
you
Park.
can go pick up a game of women's rugby over that extended tournament for a parent with kids. Like, right, we're going to have a nice little road trip.
Yeah, it's cool.
And you work for Sale Sharks. Their mantra, Northern Rugby Matters, is something that you are so fiercely passionate about. The conversations I've had with some of your club mates and your club owners, it just, the passion comes out of their very pores. Are there little girls coming along to training sessions who've already got their sights on watching the Red Roses play?
100%. I think what's great as well is what it gives back to the club. So like Salford, City of Salford Stadium is going to host some World Cup games, and for us as Sale Sharks, the opportunity to be able to tap into that, to say, look, you've been to a World Cup game, you've got this on your doorstep, you've got a PWR women's side, you can come and watch that. I think the beauty of it being in England, isn't it, is that everybody can trade on this World Cup because it's going to be the biggest, it's going to be the best, and how much growth it will give our game across grassroots and elite level, not just Red Roses, is phenomenal.
England hasn't hosted a Rugby World Cup since 2010, 14 whole years ago, but it was only a couple ago, Karen, that football rolled into town.
Yeah.
Euros was a volta, an absolute pivot in women's sporting narratives. Is it safe to say that England know how to throw a party? Is this going to be good?
Well, the World Cup here, the rugby, yeah, this is going to be quality. It's going to be amazing. Any tournament that's on home soil, you know, we know how to do it well. And I'm really excited. Look, and like you mentioned about the Women's Euros that we had, it was such a joyous occasion. I think women's sports offers that kind of, that feeling of joy, the environment, the culture, the happiness. It's chilled. I know there's obviously differences between rugby and football in general, but I think, you know, it's much more than the actual time on the pitch. It's everything that goes with it, and it's just like, for me, the Women's Euros was such a joyous occasion. And actually, in the office after the Six Nations, actually a couple of people came in and they stayed after the game for the...
Did you come down to one of the Six Nations?
I didn't come to that one. I'm a bad person. I was working.
Let her off.
Yeah, but they went to the game at Twickenham, and the great thing I think about female sports is that there's still an accessibility to the players in a safe capacity.
Yes.
And the guy in the office came in and he said his daughter was really close to the players, and she got to a couple of them and she got one of the jerseys.
That's
and
cool.
it like made her like day, like made her like year, and it was just like, you know, I got goosebumps, and I was like, that's what I think it can do. It can offer, it can inspire. And I think, is it 100,000 that you know, we want to get more female rugby players playing after back of the tournament. So if we can create a great atmosphere, a joyous one, and inspire the next generation, then I mean, that's what the Women's Euros did for us, so I hope it happens the same for the rugby.
That was catalysed, though, by the results, and the Lionesses did get their fairy tale ending, because if you lift the pot at the home of English football, you're going to inspire even more little girls. So, Katie, and I'm not going to ask this question of you, Karen, so actually just how much do you know about rugby? If I ask you for John Mitchell's 10, 12, 13 lineup for the opening game of the tournament, you're probably not going to be able to tell me. But how much do you follow the Red Roses?
I'd probably pick my mates. I'd probably pick, you know, Mo Scaz would get you out of retirement. I know Sarah Hunter's expecting, but I'd probably say, do you fancy? Well, she's coach, isn't she? But no, look, my knowledge isn't going to be anywhere near as superior as both of you. But I probably know the individuals and did some stuff with Hannah Botman as well. So I know more of the individuals and watched the Rugby Sevens recently in the Olympic Games, so that was pretty cool.
She's a convert, basically, is what she's saying.
Look, I'm a fan of women's sports. You know, women's football is my obviously the one that has my heart, because I played in it and like work in it religiously. But I will back any female sport as best as I can. I'm not an expert in it, but I'll champion any women or woman as best as I can.
Hear, hear. We'll get you down to the World Cup. If you could parachute one of your former footballers into the Red Roses starting lineup, who'd do a job?
You know what? Because she used to play for Sunderland. I'm going to go Lucy Bronze as well.
You?
Yeah.
Not Jill? She was going to be well disappointed about that.
Nah, because I think as much as I love Jill, like...
She couldn't catch?
we want to win, and I'd pick Lucy in terms of rugby. So Jill is a winner, obviously, but I think if we're going to win the World Cup, I'd pick Lucy.
Imagine how hard Lucy would hit.
Yeah.
She'd chop tackle you and you'd... No chance. Okay, well then the rugby question is coming to you, because I mentioned that the Lionesses won their home tournament. The Red Roses, every time they emerge from a tunnel, it is going to be cacophonous. Wherever they are playing, the support is going to be next level. They haven't lost a match since the last Rugby World Cup final. They are the #1 side in the world. They've got home advantage, but are they favourites?
Controversial, isn't it? I think they've got to go in as favourites. I think you can't bet against them. I think the other thing you can't do is, though, you can't write off the other three, in my eyes, so New Zealand, France, and I think Canada. But I suppose if New Zealand being able to do it at home, like there's not any more pressurised environments than a World Cup final in your own backyard, I don't think. And having played at the Stoop, it's just such a different level of stress and exposure, because everybody you know, your friends, your family are there. Whereas when you go abroad and you're playing in different stadiums, yes, they're supporting, but you've got that like a little bit of that underdog tag almost. When you're at Twickenham, the pressure is on you. So I think that'd be massive for John Mitchell.
How will they cope with that?
Well, it's gonna be interesting, isn't it? Because I think they've done a load of work going back to Twickenham, making Twickenham this fortress, playing in front of 45, 50, 60,000, and this year will be really important. But you've kind of just got to be mentally strong about it. I don't think you can really prepare for a World Cup final, but you can do little building blocks that allow you to get things right, that you've talked about everything that you will talk about when you're under pressure, when you can't hear, when it's too noisy to hear calls. You can tick as many of them what if. That's what we called them in 2014. You kind of what ifs. They might never happen, but you've got a plan just in case.
Just going back to, you mentioned Jill. I think in the Euros team that won, we had like quite a spine of experienced players, you know, from Ellen White to Jill, you know, from Millie Bright, you know, and Met. We had there was experience. Who are probably the 2 or 3 that are going to be, or maybe more than that, when the pressure cooker's on, who's going to kind of, the experienced players to drag them through.
If you look at that squad, a lot of those girls will have played New Zealand in that previous World Cup final. Yeah. So the likes of Abby Ward, your Emily Scarrett, your Mo Hunt, your Marley Packett. And I think previously they'd gone into the last World Cup final with only a couple. Now you've got probably 75% of that squad that we think will play, Ellie Kilduns, Abby Dowes, they've all experienced World Cup finals. I think the difference will be the level of scrutiny, and I'm not sure how you prepare for that, because everybody's going to want a piece of them, and they might not at the beginning, but by the time you get to quarters and semis, everybody is going to be analysing every single bit of you, and it's how you kind of shut out that periphery, isn't it, and just focus on the job at hand.
Can I ask one more question?
Of course you can. Do you want these?
No, I've totally ruined it, but also very with a year to go, is there a breakout player that you think
That's a great
is
question.
going to get in the squad that people might like, you're thinking, or like a breakout player that's going to light up the tournament from an England's perspective?
It's a lovely question.
Great
I'm glad you
question,
asked that.
isn't it? No. Great question. I think the league will be a really good tester for that. And then it's going to be how brave John Mitchell is around his squad selection. Yeah. You know, we've just seen Meg Jones has got injured there. Like, she would be on the first name of the team sheet. Ellie Kildun has done a massive amount of rugby. How much can she sustain form? Because that's the big thing, isn't it? There might be breakout players, but you need your core squad. If you're going to go beat your France's, your New Zealand's in semi-finals, you can't just rely on one. Yeah. You're going to need 10, 12, 13 players on their mettle. Botts, Abby Ward coming back into form. I'm not sure we'll see a new name, but it'll be fascinating to see if the group who are already in existence, who like swims to the surface and says, look, Home World Cup, come back and pick me. I want this. Big deal.
Oh, I've got goosebumps already.
We've had a lot of goosebumps in the studio already, haven't we? Katie Buchanan, though, come on, surely.
Do you think?
I think there's something very special about her.
And also the other thing is long term, isn't it? These guys are in it to win it. So Katie Buchanan, no doubt will we see in LA probably in 2029. Is now too soon? Will she be part of that wider squad? Does she gain the experience like you've touched on, which is really important in the player development? But I'm not sure.
It's a home World Cup, so you've got to balance it, ain't you? It's interesting.
It's a fascinating balance, you're right, between home advantage and pressure, and then whether or not it's scar tissue from New Zealand and that final, or whether it's battle armour and it's going to make them hardier and more difficult to beat. One final question on the Rugby World Cup before we move on to broader topics. We can't have you here, Katie, 10 years on, and not ask you how it felt to lift that trophy. What on earth you can remember from that moment?
It's funny, isn't it? Because we chatted about it last week, but the biggest thing was relief. So for me, once the final whistle had gone, there's two things. There was the relief that we'd done it and we'd put it to bed, and that we weren't ever going to be called bridesmaids and brides and all the things that you reporters and journalists love chatting about. And the other thing was pride. I think you talked about it with your squad. It's very rare where you get a group of people that are so aligned in one vision. Like, squads come together and you have a good blend, but there's some bits and some cracks. For us, we were literally in it together, staff and players, and that massive sense of pride to be like, this isn't just about the 15 that played or the 26 that were out there in France. It was everybody who'd contributed to this journey, and that I was the one who was getting to be able to present and hold the trophy for the first time was just that overwhelming sense of pride.
That's amazing. Where'd you keep your medal?
Under the bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't have it out.
No, basically, I wanted to get them framed, but I love the idea of being able for the kids to play with them. I used to do bits in schools as well, and they're so impactful to be able to, like, I'd love to get it all framed, but I think then once it's done, it's done forever, isn't it? And the kids like banging it off the kitchen floor.
It's a good teething toy, I
Yeah,
reckon.
it really is. Good weapon as well if you want to get...
Winning medal, just ignoring on it. Wow. Go you.
Something I wanted to ask you two about is two of the fiercest competitors that I can remember watching is about...
fierce.
Both of you were fierce. Absolute visors down mentalities. One of my favourite moments from the whole Olympic Games this year was Simone Biles and Jordan Childs kneeling down for Rebecca Andrade on the podium.
Oh, that was amazing.
Just saluting. It was one of those moments that I think we will talk about for generations. There was pride and joy and empathy and selflessness and sisterhood to it. And I know that when you cross the white line to compete, you fight like tigers. But just tell us a little bit about the sense of camaraderie within women's sport.
Well, against each other from like different nations.
Yeah, you might be deathly rivals when you're out there, but ultimately there's so much respect.
Yeah, I definitely think there's the respect level. I think sometimes it's harder when you're not in the same I guess when you're in gymnastics, you're around each other probably a little bit more throughout the day. You're a little bit more segregated, I think, as a team. But definitely in retirement, when I bump into the players, my level of respect, and like you said, there is a rivalry. I think I was a very different person both on and off the pitch. Probably very disliked on the pitch. Not sure I'm liked on the pitch though, off the pitch. But I think then when you can sit down and have a chat and be like, wow, like, the level of respect there. I think it's probably since I've retired more, I've had more conversations with athletes and footballers about it, to be honest.
I think it's amazing because I think that's what it comes down to. There was a lot of kind of mixed reviews, wasn't there, about what they were doing. But I think it's respect. They will have known what you put your body through or what they've all put their body through to be able to achieve what she's achieved. And for me, I think that's what it is. I think there's loads of players that you played against and you might know a little bit of their backstory and you know so much more about individuals now, the wonders of social media. I think, especially when we started off, you only knew what you heard or whether if you got a beer with them at the end of a tour. And I remember chatting to, there was a New Zealand 8 called Casey Robinson, going back a few years now, and she was massive. She was like the nemesis. Like, as a 10, she breaks from the scrum and she was coming for me, and she made it very, very obvious.
You don't get blocked?
No, and Molly Packer or Maggie were like peeing their nails or something as a 7, and she was coming for me, like, and we played 3 tests over here, and literally, like, she had my life, like, picks you out in a line, she's coming hard. I remember speaking to her after the game, and I had, like, not, I suppose, a hatred, like fierce competition, because I was like, I don't want to be that soft week 10 that somebody's going to run over. And she was a farmer, and she was lovely, and she was honestly the most quietly spoken person you've ever met. I was like, how is this character? You listen to her story, and she was working on the farm and everything, but you never got that. But like so much like aggression in the game. But when you meet them off pitch, you're like, fair play, like you had me, yeah.
And you'll pull them up, chop them down, help them back up to their feet again.
I don't think I was helping her up. Might be like if I tackled her, I would have been well happy. Rubbing her face in the mud, woo, and then running away really quickly.
If I tackled anyone, my team would have been buzzing.